Three.
Hey everyone, this is Kit Cabello with Hard Lens Media. Welcome to a very special interview that we are hosting here at Hard Lens Media. Joining us is a speaker of truth, someone who's not afraid to speak his mind and tell the establishment to go, well, blank itself, because I have to watch myself because YouTube is now censoring how we speak and how we talk. Joining us here, the host of Redacted Tonight, activist, comedian, speaker of truth, Lee Camp. Lee Camp, thank you so much for joining us here at Hard Lens Media.
Thanks for the kind intro. So you're not allowed to curse. Can I curse? Or
sure, I don't care. It's fine. You know, I mean, hey, guest privileges. So, you know, just be careful with your adjectives, pronouns, adverbs, because, you know, I mean, now we use the violence.
And that's a great point. A lot of people aren't talking about the self-censorship that is now going on simply because everyone fears their YouTube channel will be taken away at any moment. So.
Well, you know, and the thing is, because while we are taping this, I want to make it very clear, because as it stands right now, Progressive Soapbox and Ford Fisher got their channels remonetized, which is fantastic news. But sadly, a mutual colleague of ours, a good friend of the show, Graham Elwood, I mean, you've co-hosted on his show as well. He's been on your show. Graham Elwood still remains demonetized. Unfortunately, the Convo Couch still remains demonetized. Nico House's channel still remains demonetized. And it's starting to become very, maybe George Orwell was right about 1984. So we're kind of stuck with this idea of, okay, great, censorship is real and it's happening to a lot of progressives, but yet we're seeing people who are liberals or are supposed to be allies to progressives still cheerleading this ridiculous massive amount of censorship that we're seeing firsthand.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say most of the cheerleading is going on the liberal and mainstream airwaves, while we see the actual people who actually are left, not this kind of faux liberal, oh, I claim to be liberal, but I want, you know, endless war, I want endless Wall Street exploitation, blah, blah, blah. Those people seem fine with this censorship because that the type of media they like serves the empire, serves the military-industrial complex, serves Wall Street at the end of the day. So those of us who are actually truly left, who actually are for ending war and are for equality and are against oppression, we're the ones who are being purged or demonetized. You know, step one was kind of a shadow banning where you simply can't gain subscribers. I've been close to shadow banned for years now. But step two is demonetizing so that a lot of these people can't continue to have careers doing what they, you know, love to do and are good at, which is talking about these things from the left perspective. And then step three is straight up deleting the channels. But, you know, you get a lot less pushback if you don't delete the channel. You just shadow ban it and demonetize it. Yeah, Graham Elwood, who I co-host a podcast called Government Secrets with, but we put it up on YouTube as well. And he's just been demonetized, which is really, really brutal to a lot of content creators.
Well, yeah, and the thing is too, because Graham Elwood, Ron Placone, yourself, Jimmy Dore, you know, you guys are comedians, and before COVID-19 happened, I know you guys did a lot of you know, trips around the country, you know, hosting outstanding shows. I mean, me and Daniel and some of the team of Hard Lens Media, we've been to your show when you came here to Chicago. Likewise with Jimmy Dore, Graham Elwood, and you know, now with this virus that's still running amok, I mean, people still have to remain indoors. And of course, a lot of content creators are now really trying to get involved in YouTube, but yet we're seeing that jackboot of censorship happen. And we here at Hard Lens Media were censored, shadow banned to be more precise. Everything was limited or demonetized between from March of 2020 all the way up to September of 2020. And we nearly lost everything. But what is the future of independent media and press? Because even Jordan Sheridan's coverage of the January 6th riots that were happening were taken down, even though CNN, Fox News, MSNBC were using that footage, but yet their content still remains up and YouTube still favors these corporations. So what is the future of independent media if automatically original content is being taken down? Because I rarely see corporate media at these events, and if so, they're doing a half-assed job.
Yeah, it's a gutting of independent reporting, which has been far more threatening to the gatekeepers, the corporate media in the past, 10, 20 years, because it can be put up online and it can actually get out to people. Since the advent of radio and television all the way up until just 20, 25 years ago, people couldn't really spread the word about what was going on in the country outside of those tiny number of corporate-owned channels, the three news channels that we used to have on the television. So we saw a kind of a great, people called it the information revolution, right? Where anyone could say, this is what's happening in my neighborhood. I'm going to put it up on YouTube and Facebook. People can find out about it. And for a while, the mainstream media tried to fit in with this and tried to be a part of this. They'd have their, indie reporting that they'd show on CNN or cell phone footage or whatever. And then they realized that that wasn't doing the trick, because still information was getting out without the gatekeepers there, without the corporate oligarchs saying what is allowable and what's not. And during that time, you saw the rise of all kinds of independent voices like my own. I started off on YouTube mainly, and then it grew into a TV show, Redacted Tonight. But you saw a rise of tons of content creators that were doing really great stuff, and it was very threatening to the mainstream media. I mean, if you go back just 4 or 5 years ago and you look at CNN clips on YouTube, they're getting 2,000 views. They're getting nothing. They're same with Fox News or whatever else. But nowadays they get hundreds of thousands of views, and all of those of us who are independent or small time compared to the corporate media are being gutted and torn down. And that is because it was greatly and for now continues to be greatly threatening to the ruling elite, the Wall Street powers, the central bankers, the oligarchs that are worth of billions of dollars. It is very threatening to them. And we've seen that threat in, although I hate Donald Trump, it did connect to the rise of Donald Trump, because he called out these entities, whether he was lying or not, he was calling them out. And the rise of Bernie Sanders as well, because people could see outside of the kind of two-party corporate shit show, and we saw this great rise of new opinions that didn't fit in the allowable borders.
And I'm glad you also brought the fact that, of course, corporate media has been trying to control the narrative, but even these large entities are not safe themselves. And when it does happen to them, they usually tend to forget about it. Case in point, let's talk about the New York Post, which is a large outlet. But when they covered the Hunter Biden story, Facebook and Twitter were deleting anyone sharing that article on their platforms, and anyone that was, it was just like, it was almost like they were removed. So even the New York Post, when they cover something that is, factual, and
it's now been proven very factual. Yeah. The Hunter Biden stuff, yeah.
Well, but the thing is, what is it going to take then, really, for people to push away from social media, or is it make social media a public utility? Because even corporate media itself is being censored when it comes down to factual stories, but yet they still promote stories like Russiagate, or the fact that, take for example, Bernie Bros, that kind of horrible myth that was going on, or the smearing of Tulsi Gabbard, or trying to portray Black Lives Matter as a violent organization, or turning a blind eye to the police brutality, and even the police themselves who were shooting at corporate media reporters, even though corporate media was saying, hey, we're on your side, it still didn't matter to them.
Well, most of the time the law enforcement leaves the corporate media alone, but yeah, sometimes they get caught in the crossfire, whereas independent media, it was several years ago, I think maybe 2016, but you literally had Don Lemon on location, I think in Baltimore, telling the police to arrest indie media outlets. So they view themselves as above and beyond. But anyway, to your larger point, I think that's absolutely right, is that you have something like the Hunter Biden story, which has been proven true. Now, you can say there's various things that can be argued about it. Oh, it's too scandalous for right before an election, or it was designed to just hurt one candidate, or it has to do with someone's family member, which shouldn't matter in an election. Like, you can have those arguments, but that doesn't that should not stop an outlet from being able to cover these stories. And yet they act like, oh, well, we had to purge it we had to pull down that stuff from the New York Post or from wherever, pull down Wikipedia stuff, not Wikipedia, WikiLeaks stuff, because it's, it's conspiracy or it's harmful or whatever. WikiLeaks, by the way, everything they've ever published has been proven true. But you have that stuff pulled down. Meanwhile, CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, they love to go on and on about how, these things need to be taken down off the internet. And yet we know for a fact that they cover completely false conspiracy theories like the Russian collusion thing that completely fell on its face and has been completely debunked. They covered it for 4 fucking years and acted like it was fine to use our mainstream media for that coverage. Obviously you can go down the list, WMD in Iraq, the chemical attacks in Syria. It's just on every level, they've been proven false again and again and again. And none of that gets them purged from these social media platforms, because those are the type of stories that serve the kind of American empire, the military industrial complex, the 2 corporate parties. If you're serving those ends, then you normally will be allowed to continue to function.
And, because you brought up WikiLeaks, and while we are recording this interview, it has come to my attention that the Biden administration is still on the warpath to extradite Julian Assange. Mind you, he's an Australian citizen in a British prison, still being kept there at the behest of the American government. I mean, I don't know, calling this kangaroo court maybe might be an insult to the idea of kangaroo court at this point in time, but whistleblowers are
certainly
still
an insult to kangaroos.
Yeah.
At least.
But still, you have a man there, and everyone might have different opinions of Julian Assange, because I've heard some people tweet out that he's a meanie, he's a jerk, and all this other stuff. But it doesn't matter at this point.
Yeah,
a guy's being tortured.
As if, well, I've never met the man, but
no,
so,
neither have I.
Whether he's a dick or not, as if this world isn't ruled by dicks. I mean, as if every politician that is in Congress isn't a dick. So the idea that like, I like the idea that he's being tortured in prison for years on end because, he's a dick. It's like, are you kidding me? That's the dumbest thing I've ever heard.
Well, hey, I'm going to quote AOC. Hey, watch your words, or they're violence, okay?
Yeah, exactly.
I know. Who can ever believe that actually happened? But the bigger point is, and the thing is we're still seeing Biden himself carry on the policies that Obama had towards whistleblowers. And if this is how it's going to play out for these potential 4 years of Biden being president, whether or not his health will factor in and he might have to step down, because let's face it, there is something, as he likes to say, there's something fundamentally wrong with him, because he likes to use the word fundamentally, because nothing will fundamentally change. But I mean, still, the thing is, whistleblowers are, we rely on these people to call out abuse of power when corruption is running amok. But it seems no matter what happens, it's the whistleblower that gets prosecuted, whereas the person who's committing a crime gets either a slap on the wrist or is still allowed to walk free, and nothing is done about it. So,
I believe it's in the Constitution, when in doubt, shoot the messenger, because that seems to be what's going on here. And I mean, this goes under a large list of topics in which it reveals the 2-party duopoly charade by the fact that they both agree completely on what should be done with Julian Assange. They believe he should be tortured forever in prison because he revealed their secrets, the secrets of the American empire. Although he also revealed, by the way, secrets of many governments around the world: China, Russia, Peru, Australia. So when people act like, it's just America that WikiLeaks went after, that is not true. They were for transparency, believed citizens could benefit from learning what their governments were doing, and revealed so much to these citizens. And we should know what our governments are doing, because we have this, ostensibly, we have a democracy. We don't really, but we pretend to. And so if we're going to pretend to have a democracy, we need to be informed citizenry to vote for actually candidates that we understand what they're up to, what they've been doing, what our government's doing. But of course, that's not the reality of it. The reality of it is that both parties, the oligarchs on every level, want to set an example of Julian Assange, want to set an example of whistleblowers. Do not reveal our crimes or you will be punished. And that, at the end of the day, is what it comes down to. I mean, Obama wanted to indict Assange, but did not because they were afraid of the precedent it would set for freedom of speech and freedom to publish. But Trump and his Justice Department had no qualms about the precedent, and now Biden appears so far to be continuing down that road. And let's not forget that the British court decided that Julian Assange could not be extradited because of how terrible U.S. prisons are, and that he may try and kill himself. And so they refused to extradite him. But now Biden and his Justice Department are appealing that to continue this horrible crime against humanity against the most famous publisher in the world.
Yeah, I have to agree 100%. And the man's being tortured. He should return home to his friends and family. And at this case, at this point in time, I mean, I don't know what's going to take for there to be a real political revolution, especially when it comes down to holding the establishment accountable, because it's not going to be corporate media and independent media is being censored. So the next best step is, I guess, demolish the petrodollar. And I want to bring this up because you and Graham Elwood have talked about this in detail about Bitcoin, e-currency. I know that Graham Elwood, like us here at Heartlands Media and a few other of our fellow colleagues, are on Rockfin, and they use the REE token, which is similar to Bitcoin as well. And is this the potential way of hurting the establishment by basically using Bitcoin? Because we know Elon Musk just invested a large ton of money that I will never have in my lifetime towards Bitcoin, and possibly making it look legitimate in many ways. And also, let's not forget what the people, the Wall Street bets and the Redditors did to a lot of these hedge fund managers when it came down to GameStop. I mean, is this the pathway we have to take to maybe hurt them financially when it comes down to Bitcoin? I mean, can you explain this a little bit for some of our viewers? Because we do get questions about e-currency, Bitcoin, and what it means when it goes up against the US dollar.
Yeah, so there's some important notes to understand with Bitcoin, and it is above and beyond the main digital currency. The others, are kind of sideshows compared to Bitcoin. But I'm putting the GameStop thing aside for a second. But are people like the criticisms of Bitcoin are like, oh well, it's not backed by anything. And people don't seem to realize that our money is not backed by anything. The US dollar is a fiat currency. It is meaningless except for what we believe it is. If you and a store owner both believe that dollar matters, then you can go buy something with that dollar. If either you or he believe it's meaningless, then it gets pretty janky there pretty quick. And this is back to the beginning of money. This is how it worked. You had an understanding as to what, for a long time, people would write before dollars, people would write IOU, 3 chickens on a piece of paper and give it to the person. They'd hold on to that. And one day they'd say, hey, where are these 3 chickens? Look, I got the piece of paper. I mean, that's how this started. And so it's a tablet. It's a ledger of transaction. Well, Bitcoin is a ledger of a transaction, but it's actually more reliable than dollars on multiple fronts. One is it doesn't have to do with a government. So if the U.S. government were to collapse, or if the U.S. government were to print trillions of dollars, making our dollar mean less, which they are doing, that wouldn't happen to Bitcoin. Bitcoin has a limited number that can be mined. We don't have to get into the mathematical mining process, but the point is there is a limited number of Bitcoin forever. It's like gold, except, with gold, you could suddenly stumble upon a massive trove of gold in the earth and you'd have more of it. But
which would
Bitcoin,
be cool.
That would be cool. Yeah. I've only done that twice in my life and it was a good time. But with Bitcoin, there's a limited number, so it's not going to have inflation in that regard. Now, this doesn't mean Bitcoin's perfect. It's very useful on certain levels. Another thing is that people that are unbanked is what the term people use, meaning a lot of third world countries, people don't have banks. They don't have banks near them. They don't have enough money to have a bank account. But many of them do have cell phones and smartphones, and they can have Bitcoin delivered across international borders to them or out to someone, and the banking system doesn't get in the way. There's not some central banker saying, sorry, you're not legitimate, you're an illegal citizen, or whatever the fuck they want to accuse you of. They can do it with Bitcoin. All the unbanked in the world have a way to exchange currency. And so that is a major benefit. And it's outside of central banking and governments. But like I said, it's not, people want to act like it will save humanity and get rid of inequality. And no, it won't. You could have billionaires like Musk can buy billions of dollars worth of Bitcoin and still kind of control what's going on with the Bitcoin market. So there's a lot of ways that it is not perfect, but there's a lot of ways it's better than the dollar and our petrodollar. Yeah.
But how much? But with Elon Musk now investing into Bitcoin, is it a game changer in regards to making more people aware of its existence and the impact that it can do towards the petrodollar? I mean, is this something that can be done to shake up the establishment and the old way of how we run things? Because at this point in time, you have a lot of Americans struggling, and still we're able to have these ridiculous regime change wars. We're able to bail out the rich. And maybe this is something that could change things. I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely has an influence. With the Musk thing, it's like every time Bitcoin's in the news, it helps Bitcoin. It goes up. It's gone up to whatever, $47,000 a Bitcoin or something, but it will likely come back down unless it continues to stay in the news, which means that there are, slight bubbles in Bitcoin. For a while it shot up to 20,000 and then dropped back down to 6. So I wouldn't put all your money in it, assuming it's going to make you rich. Agreed. Or something. Yeah. You could very well lose a lot of money if you're not careful what you're doing. But it really comes down to whether these big entities like Musk, if Tesla were to actually start using it, he claims they're going to start taking Bitcoin as payment. And every time Bitcoin's used as a form of payment, that solidifies it. So it becomes a regular way for people to exchange goods and services. That solidifies it as a currency. Now, you could also have the reverse, where governments come in and say, we don't like this, so we're going to try and make it as hard as possible to use Bitcoin. We're going to have the IRS looking through your papers to make sure you don't own any Bitcoin because we've made it illegal or whatever the hell. That could happen, which would greatly harm how useful Bitcoin is. However, you said, Musk is getting, big investors are getting in, Wall Street's getting in, which on one hand is bad because you have the same billionaires as before running a large portion of the Bitcoin market. But on one hand, it's good because guess what? If Wall Street's invested in it, then guess who they have control over? Congress and the government. They control them. So if Wall Street's getting in on it, then it's far less likely that Wall Street will pull their Congress people aside that they own. Let's be honest, they own them, and say, we need some regulation to stop people from using Bitcoin. Now, you couldn't, because you can have encrypted markets and things like that, I don't think they could ever stop it, but they could certainly make it pretty hard.
Yeah, and that's something a lot of people need to understand because, again, it is a risk, and we're trying to get familiar with Rockfin and what it's doing because they have their own version of a Bitcoin, and it's very interesting to see how this will all play out in the long run. But another point I want to bring up, and we talked about Wall Street Bets just a little bit, but I just want to bring up on what it did toward these hedge fund managers and these Wall Street executives that for a while were betting on stocks like GameStop, AMC, and I believe Nokia as well to fail. They're basically run these these three stocks down, but yet Wall Street Bets comes in and basically turned their whole world upside down. And these were just a lot of them were just people who just decided to get involved and play the game that Wall Street's been playing for years. Is this a sign of more things to come? Because finally, regular people, were playing the game that Wall Street does, and Wall Street wasn't prepared for it at all.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Wall Street seems afraid of this. Basically, it is smaller investors started playing the game that Wall Street has been playing for years, and they don't like that. 80% of stocks are owned by the top 10% of the population, and most of those are owned by a tiny, tiny number of very rich people. And you know what went on with GameStop is it's not entirely small time investors. Like once it started becoming a thing and a trend, some of the big time investors got in on it as well. So this isn't just, poor people getting their comeuppance on the rich. It's more complicated than that. However, it is different than what Wall Street's used to. I mean, this was a bunch of, like you said, small time, relatively, not wealthy people that decided to pump up this stock, which completely ruined the shorting that these hedge funds had done on GameStop. And so there's a few hedge funds that basically have gone bankrupt or lost, billions of dollars because of what went on with GameStop. Now, for me, the main point, which people are not making that I've seen, I've done a video on it, but most people are not making this point. To me, the main point is, look how little all of this has to do with reality. It had nothing to do with GameStop performance, what they were selling, what they were, how good they were going to do in the future. It was entirely people just betting on the future of the stock, but then manipulating that stock in order to make a large amount of money on altering that stock. But none of it had to do with reality. None of it had to do with whether people are going into GameStop and buying games. And to me, that shows what a fraud Wall Street is, what a fraud these hedge funds are, what a fraud these, shorting a stock. It's all garbage. It is a Ponzi scheme. And I've been talking about this for a couple of years. There's a great book on it called The Ponzi Factor by Tanden, who used to be a trader. And Wall Street is the dictionary definition of a Ponzi scheme. Stock does not mean you get the profits of the company anymore. That's how it started. It started with you invest in a company, they do well, they give you a little percentage of the profits. That's gone. Like that almost never happens now. Reality now is that you buy a stock in a company, it means nothing. It is worth nothing unless you find someone else to buy it for more. And you can do that. You can trick people into buying it for more, but that's a Ponzi scheme. That is the definition of a Ponzi scheme.
And it's been running very smoothly thanks to the two-party neoliberal establishment system. And let us not forget that Joe Biden himself and his fellow colleagues who've been in politics for 30, 40 plus years gladly prostituted themselves towards these Wall Street executives, big banks, corporate CEOs, hedge fund managers, the top 1%, people who dictate to them what laws they can write. All the while, we are still waiting for measly crumbs, a $2,000 stimulus check that we're still waiting on. So I want to ask just two more questions, and I just want to get your thoughts on this. And of course, when this video does premiere tomorrow, I mean, anything can happen. But right now, Neera Tanden's potential political future is up in the air, whether she gets confirmed by the Senate or not. And I just want to get your thoughts on the fact that even because one of the people who will be voting for or against Neera Tanden being part of the Biden administration will be none other than our good friend Bernie Sanders, who says his good friend is Joe Biden, Joe 30330. I want to get your thoughts on potentially how this can play out, because again, I want to let everyone know who's watching this. This is being recorded, so you probably know the end result, and we're just giving our thoughts on Biden possibly getting Neera Tanden in his administration and potentially Bernie maybe voting for or against her.
Right. I think some people have said Bernie will vote for her, but either way, whether she were to get in or not, this shows what Biden and the Biden administration, which is made up of Democratic establishment figures that have been around a long time, mainly not new progressive people. This shows what they think of progressives, because Neera Tanden is just about at the top of the list of kind of liberal goons online who go around attacking anyone who's even slightly left of the corporate Democratic establishment. So basically, she, like the amount of time she has to tweet at people, to trash them for actually standing up for the oppressed, to end poverty, to end war, to actually help people. She goes after all of them in a vicious way. And she is also, completely defensive of the apartheid state of Israel, attacks anyone who dare speak up for Palestinian rights or say Palestinians are people who deserve their own rights and their own, water supply and their own electricity rather than getting 4 hours of electricity a day or whatever. Anyone who dare stands up for them, she attacks viciously. And so by Biden, whether she gets in or not, I think it looks like she will, but by Biden picking her, it shows what the Biden administration thinks of true progressives. Mm-hmm. It is a complete and utter fuck you to anybody who is even slightly left of our garbage corporate system. And to me, that's what the Neera Tanden selection by Biden showed.
Just hearing you say that, speaking the truth, it hurts, but it's reality. And, I would expect more from Bernie Sanders. But at this point in time, I think we have to look at something different than hoping to reform the Democratic Party, because obviously we don't have a place in it. Biden himself has said nothing will fundamentally change. So before we wrap things up, I think it's very important that a lot of our viewers, subscribers know where we can find you online on social media. If you have any shows you want to plug or any kind of projects that you are working on, please, where can our viewers and subscribers find it online so that we can help promote your work and the good that you're doing? Because now more than ever, we need more people to speak out, and you've been leading by example, and I think it's very important our viewers know where to find you online.
Thanks. That means a lot. The easiest thing, I have 15 different links I could give people, but the easiest thing is leecamp.com. They can find all my stuff there, LEECAMP.com. I have 2 podcasts, one called Government Secrets, another called Common Censored. I have a comedy TV show called Redacted Tonight I'd like for everybody to check out. And I do live streams all the time with important guests on a regular basis. So, rather than give all the links, I'll just say leecamp.com. And my book is at leecampbook.com. It's got a foreword by Jimmy Dore, an intro by Chris Hedges, and I think people would enjoy it.
All right. Well, again, here's the thing I want to let everyone know. When this crisis does pass, you are more than welcome to be at our studio, to be a guest on our show. We're more than happy to have you back here anytime. Lee Camp, as always, speaking truth to power. I want to thank all of our viewers and subscribers for watching this video. Peace to you guys, and let us all do what we can to build a better future.
Thanks, guys.